Morning, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining. My name's Doug, and I'm the head of technology at Grant McGregor. I'm also joined by Nick, who's one of our Microsoft licensing partners, and Eva, who's our digital marketing specialist. For those who aren't familiar with us and maybe joining externally, Grant McGregor are an Edinburgh-based IT managed service provider. We provide IT services to businesses across the UK, ranging from things like ongoing support, maintenance, consultancy, project work, procurement, hardware, licensing, pretty much anything that you would expect from an IT department. So today's webinar is about Microsoft 365 Copilot. And we'll start by running through a few short slides just to go over what Copilot is and how you can prepare to use it. After this, we'll jump into a live demo so you can see the power behind the tool, see it live and in action. If you attended the launch webinar of Copilot that we did over a year ago now, which seems crazy, it's been out that long, some of the content might be familiar, but Copilot's a continually evolving bit of software, so there'll probably be some new functionality that you'll notice as well. There is a Q&A box at the top of the webinar, so feel free to stick your questions in there, and we'll try and answer them either during or in the Q&A portion at the end when we get there. If we run out of time, we'll follow up all the questions via email afterwards. The presentation is being recorded. You can use the same registration link just to watch it back in the future. You can forward it on to your colleagues as well, and it'll also be published on our YouTube channel. So I'm just going to hand over to Eva briefly for a quick introduction.
So hello everyone, my name is Eva and I've been with Grant McGregor for about 3 months now, almost 4, and I recently got my Copilot license, so I had already a little bit of time to explore it because AI is becoming such a big part of the way we all work right now, so it's pretty much everywhere and almost impossible to avoid. So I think today is a great opportunity for all of us to explore new tools, because some tips and tricks, share knowledge, ideas, and also ask questions to our experts. So just before we get started, there's something exciting to keep in mind. So at the end of the webinar, there will be a draw for a £20 Amazon voucher, and only those who are still here until the very end will be eligible to enter. So make sure you stick around. So I hope you enjoy the session. And now I'll hand back to Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Eva. So before we get into the good stuff, when Doug's going to show us the product in action, we're just going to go through a kind of a brief look at AI and where we are today, really. And then we're going to get into that product, that Microsoft 365 Copilot tool. When we finish those demos, we're going to look at how you can kind of get started with Copilot and then things that kind of are recommended to ready your business. And then at the end, as Eva's already mentioned, we're going to do our Amazon prize giveaway and answer any questions that we've got. So with that agenda being covered, let's dive right in. So we're in quite interesting times at the moment, especially in the business world, and a lot of that is down to this rapid uptake of technology. So industries at the moment are completely changing, and the economy is shifting, and we're at the start of what feels like a fairly new era in our workplace today. And it may seem as though AI is kind of just exploded into our lives recently, but actually AI as an idea and as a term has been around since the 1950s, believe it or not. And that was with Alan Turing, who proposed this test that could simulate human intelligence, which was known as the Turing test. There's been some quite key milestones, I would say, over the last few decades, but it really started to take off from about 2010 onwards, and that was with deep learning and big data. So whether we're kind of aware of it or today or not, we're actually using AI in a pretty big way. So if you use Netflix, Netflix is going to recommend TV shows based on your viewers' viewing history and preferences. Similar thing with Spotify as well. So that's going to recommend songs and playlists that are all tailored to the individual based on your listening history. And then you've got things like Amazon, which are going to use AI to promote products to your homepage, as well as things that it thinks you might like to purchase, which is absolutely scary. And then we've got things like AI personal assistants within our phones, so Google Assistant, Siri, and all the others. And then going back a little bit longer, predictive text is also a form of AI deep learning. So there's quite a lot of AI in our lives already, whether we believe it or not. But more recently, we've moved into this generative AI era. So this has given us the ability to create pictures and videos, as well as audio and text, all from a very simple prompt. And it can do this literally within a few seconds, as we're going to see shortly from Doug. Some really, really interesting numbers here. So when you look at the uptake of technology, it took 16 years for mobile phones to reach 100 million users. The internet took less than half of that, with about 7 years. Facebook took over 4 years, nearly 4.5 years. And then ChatGPT had 100 million users in just 3 months. And today we're at almost 200 million users, I think. So the growth and interest in AI is huge, and the growth and interest in technology on the whole is absolutely massive. And we've seen in the last few weeks this emergence of a new tool called DeepSeek. So I'm not sure if you've heard about that one, but this is, again, a generative AI startup from China. This is promised to be much cheaper and more efficient than perhaps some of the other tools that are out there on the market. But this can come, or could come, with some drawbacks, with the main one being privacy. So where will your data go and where is it stored? So these are quite important questions, especially when you're trusting a tool with your potentially sensitive information. But competition in the AI space is really, really good, because I think that's only going to benefit customers in the long run, through kind of reduced efficiencies, and also that innovation it will create from that competition. It's going to lead to a better product for us all. So in a recent study on the potential impact of AI, it's predicted that up to 70% of companies are likely to have adopted at least one form of AI by 2030. So a lot of us already do, and some of us may use multiple forms of AI in the workplace. And I really believe that AI can help lift that kind of mundane, repetitive tasks that we have to deal with every day, and it's going to hopefully help fuel some innovation for us all. And that innovation will eventually create some more jobs. It will create growth for our businesses as well, potentially new industries as well. So I think looking at where we are today and where we are in 10 years, it's going to be a very different landscape, and AI is going to be pretty pivotal to that change. But it's not all doom and gloom. I've read a lot of articles on this, and we aren't going to be replaced completely by AI, but it should really help us with our day-to-day in the short term, at the very least. So this kind of platform shift to AI is already underway. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but it was 5 years ago to the week that COVID locked us all down, and customers are turning to Microsoft again to help us shift into this new era with AI, as they did with Teams back in 2020. So Microsoft has this work trend index, which looks at productivity signals from Microsoft's vast amount of data and labor market trends from LinkedIn. So I've got some nice insights for us. So a sad but quite real number from the surveys is that 64% of employees, they don't have enough time or energy to do their job. And that's probably because we're spending far too much time searching for information and navigating these quite inefficient meetings. And employees are spending 57% of their time on communicating and coordinating, which doesn't leave much time for actual creation of content and collaboration. So the volume of the data that we receive, emails, chats, is kind of outpaced our ability to process it all. And Microsoft calls this a thing called digital debt. So employees are starting to embrace the idea of using AI to support their work, though. And in fact, 70% of employees are open to delegating some of their work to AI to lessen their workloads. And while for many AI-related job loss is top of mind, the data also shows that on the whole, managers that are looking to AI are not doing it to replace people, but they're doing it to kind of empower them and support them. So another study found that 87% of leaders believe AI will give their organization a competitive edge. That's a huge stat. But I guess a question that a lot of those leaders will be asking themselves is, how is my organization going to seize the full potential of AI whilst also safeguarding my business and my data and my employees? They're some quite key questions. So before kind of this, starting on this path to AI, it's quite important for every organization to think about these questions and if some of these questions don't give the response you need, then maybe AI isn't right for you right at this minute. So number one, what are your goals for using it? Is it to gain better insights? Is it to be more efficient? Is it to help create content, for a marketing campaign or something like that, as an example? Number two, so what are the pain points? So what could AI address potentially for you? Is there manual tasks that could be automated, more efficient in meetings? What are your current AI capabilities? So have you got chatbots in place already, which is quite becoming more and more common? Have you got people in the business that use AI on a daily basis in other forms in their personal lives? Are they skilled at prompting, as an example? And then does your organization have a data strategy in place? So are you GDPR compliant? Is all your data secure? And the last one, so do you have the necessary infrastructure and resources, to support AI initiatives? So have you already got systems in place, like CRM systems, that could utilize AI and that can be plugged into AI tools? And can you skill up your employees, or do you need external help? So some quite important questions. So each of these elements will help guide and shape how you bring AI into your organization. So what we are seeing currently is customers are piloting quite a small targeted group of users, and then after a month or two, once they've seen the ROI, they're then driving wider adoption across more users when they kind of feel ready. But once that pilot group has started to skill up with the tool, it's then really useful for those users to then kind of upskill the rest of the team as well, and almost be like champions for AI. And that brings us nicely on to Microsoft's Copilot tool, Microsoft's AI tool, I should say, which is called Microsoft Copilot for 365. So this is going to be your AI assistant that's going to help you be more creative, more productive, but also the key thing here is being more secure. So it's going to combine the power of the latest OpenAI large language model, which is ChatGPT 4.0. When the new one comes out, you'll also get access to that model as well. It's going to plug into your data within your Microsoft 365 apps. And again, it's those apps that we use every day. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams. And the great thing about Microsoft is it's going to be built on their comprehensive approach to security, as well as compliance, privacy, and more recently, responsible AI. So it's going to inherit your organization's existing 365 security, compliance, and privacy policies. That's really, really key. So all your data is isolated. It's going to be protected within your tenant, and it's always within your control. And by design, Copilot for 365 respects your user-specific and group permissions. So any content that a user will retrieve, it will have to have access to it in the first place. So you can lock things down and make sure that they're not accessing things that perhaps they shouldn't be. One of the kind of hero SKUs, if you like, or hero products that you can attach this product to is Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Specifically, that's for SMB customers, sort of 300 users or less. And the reason this is quite key is it includes some quite important functionality. So you've got information protection, which is going to protect your sensitive documents, and you've got a thing called Microsoft Purview as well, which is going to help you manage compliance and reduce the risks by providing you those tools for data governance and risk management and compliance. So turning on some of these things is going to help ensure that Copilot is only going to surface the most relevant information from within your organization. So it's going to make sure that your data is safeguarded. And one of the promises of Copilot is it's going to be able to release some of those pain points that we touched on. So it's going to give you more time to be creative. So you're not being bogged down with emails day to day. You're not going to be in hundreds of Teams meetings and stuck in an Excel, not knowing how to draw a conclusion. It's going to help you really, hopefully, improve the quality of work as well as improve the quality of life, because it should help you with your work becoming more efficient, becoming much quicker, and stop those mundane, repetitive tasks or searching for emails and documents that you could take minutes in the past. It's going to speed that process up. And hopefully it will mean we can spend more time actually doing quality work and working together as a team. So before we look at some demos, I've got a short kind of introduction video to see it in action. So I'm going to quickly play that for us now.
Whoa. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop. Stand still, that's the motto. Yeah. Brand new bands for the auto. Oh. Foot to the ground, full throttle. Big energy for the night like lotto. Y'all talk lots, never this quiet. Life like a Seinfeld plot. Ball full They said I couldn't ever do it, okay, how's this? Fit a week worth of work in a minute. Machine well oiled, you know how I stay efficient. To do list written, I do this different. Hold up, wait a minute, I ain't finished. Okay. Look, flows the same now. Paved the way, the snakes and fakes are chased out. Back to back to back, I changed the pace now. Had to stack the cash until the bank's out. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop.
Hopefully that came through okay. I know sometimes streaming video on the internet is a tough watch, but hopefully you would have seen that the theme there is kind of it's Copilot, so it's not there to replace you, it's there to kind of aid you. It's not called autopilot, it's called Copilot. So it's going to be that kind of personal assistant for you at work. It's also worth mentioning that it can get really confusing. That Microsoft's got quite a lot of Copilots. You can see on that slide there. There are lots more, in fact, than that. There's almost 100 now. But you've got Copilot in Windows. You've got Copilot for security. But the one we're talking about today is Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is kind of those apps that we know and love and that we work within every single day. So now that we've done the kind of base overview and where we are today, I'm going to hand over to Doug, who is going to give us some lovely demonstrations and videos. So over to you, Doug.
Thanks, Nick. Hopefully that was useful for everybody and gives you some idea of what Copilot is and some of the security and growth behind it. So I'm going to just share my screen and we'll do a live demonstration of the product. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. Yeah, nods from Nick and
yes,
Eva. That's nice. Thanks.
Can see it.
So we'll start with something straightforward, which is Copilot in Microsoft Word. So Copilot in Word can be used to generate documents, blogs, articles, information, anything that you like. So at the top, what you'll see here is a Copilot prompt box. And you'll also get a Copilot add-on at the side here, which you can interact with. So I'm going to put in a straightforward prompt. Write me a customer-facing news blog that talks about growing trends in architecture. And that will generate a blog, which I can then use to put in front of my customers, as you can see on the screen at the moment. So I can make that longer, I can change it. If I'm happy with it, I can just keep it and edit it myself. But you can also further prompt it through the Copilot button at the side, or through the add-on that's popped up to say, make it shorter, make it longer, make it more professional, make it more friendly, remove this section, add this section, all these sorts of things. So easy content generation right there. Taking that a step further, for people who maybe work in marketing or do a lot of presentations for people, if I open up Microsoft PowerPoint, what you'll see in PowerPoint is this Copilot button here, which allows you to create a presentation. Now, you can create a presentation using prompts. You could say, I want a presentation on architecture or gardening or something like that, but you can also use it to reference files that already exist. So if I do reference a file and I type this, which is one I prepared earlier, that document, growing trends in architecture, I can create a presentation from that. It takes a few seconds just to generate the slides, generates all of the speaking notes alongside it and all the images and things.
I know that the speaker notes thing for me, Doug, is absolutely massive because I spend a lot of my life creating speaker notes for things. So the fact that you can just do it unaided, unprompted is superb.
Yeah, it'll do all that for you. So here's a presentation that it's just created using the information in that document about architecture. So that's pretty cool. As you can see at the bottom here, it's added in what it thinks the speaker notes would be. Obviously, the information that's in the document that you're using to create the PowerPoint from, it will use that information for the speaker notes. So depending on how relevant your document is, will be how relevant the speaker notes are. So in this, you can then use Copilot to customize it a bit further. So you could say something like add building pictures to slide 3. And that should use the image generation to generate images which you can then insert into the document. So if I have the 4 images it's given me there, if I hit the insert button, it's going to stick that image in, and there we go, nice easy image for that slide. And it will generate those automatically. They're not stolen from elsewhere. They're generated by the AI, and you can talk to it, you can customize them. You say, I want a blue one, I want a red one, I want it bigger, I want it smaller, any of these sorts of things. For people who are working maybe in finance or use a lot of data in Excel, I've got an example financial report here. So this is example data. It's publicly available. It's just pulled from the Microsoft website. And again, there's a Copilot button here. Now, if you can't think of what to say to Copilot, it does suggest prompts automatically. So some of these that are popping up here, you can see show data insights. So if I click on that one, it's going to give me one relevant bit of data insight about the table that I've got selected there. So it'll come back and tell me something useful. Just give it a sec to do that. So it's generated one data insight there, which is just finishing up. Now that's fine, one bit of information, but what I'm going to get it to do is generate data insights on a separate tab for the whole document. So this is all of the insights that it can think of that might be useful for that data. And you can see it's created the pivot tables automatically, which can be a time-consuming job for people to do, especially if they're not familiar with using Excel day to day. And again, all the graphs that tie into that pivot table data. So that can be a huge time saver if you're working with a lot of Excel documents, big data across multiple documents, getting it to create pivot tables. If you can't remember what formula to use, I know I struggle with anything more in Excel than just adding 2 numbers together. If I want something complicated, multiply this by that on this other sheet from this sheet and that sheet. It'll do all that for you, and it will tell you either here's the formula that you need to use, or you can just get it to insert it straight into the document. So super useful that. Coming across then to Microsoft Outlook, if I just bring up a new email. So here's a blank email. Emails are a time-consuming thing. They, replying to emails, rewriting them, rereading them, making them sound polite and professional and all these sorts of things. So if I maybe just type in a very short email, I want to reply to Bob and say, I'll get back to you soon. I'm a bit busy at the moment. Doug. That's not a particularly professional email. Bob might get the wrong idea, think I'm being a bit short with him or something like that. So you can highlight that. You can go to drafting of the email, and you can change it into something else. So I could say, make this email medium length and more formal. And then I can replace my email with its recommendation. And you've got, Dear Bob, hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to inform you I'm currently occupied with some pressing matters. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Appreciate your understanding in this matter. Best regards, Doug. Which is a much more professional and friendly email, which I'm sure Bob will be much more happy to receive than the short one that I wrote. So that's just a small example of the type of thing that you could do. Obviously, a much larger email, you could select it and get it to change the style, make it longer, make it shorter. And Outlook also has the ability to summarize your emails. So if you've got a lot of emails in your inbox, you can use it to either summarize one email, summarize multiple emails, or kind of give you a breakdown of all the emails that are in your mailbox. Next, I'm going to come across to Microsoft Teams. So Teams has Copilot built into it, and it's actually one of the main interfaces for Copilot. So I've popped this out from my Teams, but normally this would be a button just at the side of your chats. I'm not going to share all my private chats publicly, but yeah, this is embedded inside of Teams. And this you can talk to, like maybe you've done with some other AIs like ChatGPT, and you can just ask it questions. They could be work-specific questions, questions about documents. Where can I find, our information security policy, or maybe public questions. How many people live in Edinburgh, for example. And it will give you that information based on publicly available information. A few other sorts of examples of the things you can ask it and the information it will return. What is the current financial market doing? And what you can see next to each of these, this little number 1 and number 2, is the references that it's using. So it's showing you here what publicly available information it's using to pull its notes back from. So you can fact check, go to the source, make sure the information is accurate, and that it's pulling from a reputable place. If you want, you can talk to it, more than one line at a time. So if I ask it something complicated, explain quantum mechanics to me, it's going to give me a whole bunch of information as to what that is, which means nothing to me. Might mean something to some of you, in which case you're smarter than I am. I can say, give me more technical detail, and it's going to go right into all the maths on all that sort of thing. But you can also go the other way. Explain this as if I am 5 years old. And it will give you something suitable for a 5-year-old. Imagine you have a toy, both a ball and a wave. Sometimes you roll a ball, and other times it spreads out like a wave in water. Much more simple. So in reality, using this in a place of work, you would be talking back and forward to it on information that's relevant to your work, whether that's pulling information from the internet or whether it's information on your own documents. There is a toggle at the top here, which allows you to switch between work and web. So if you're in the work mode here, it will only look at information contained inside your 365. And that's information that, as Nick mentioned, you as a user have access to based on your SharePoint security permissions and other Microsoft security. If you wanted to also pull in information from the web, it can do both from this tab. So on the web tab, it will pull in business data, and it will then pull in context from the internet live, which it can then correlate together to give you more rich experience. You can also use the chat for other more advanced things like coding, if you're in that line of business. So, for example, if you wanted to write a web page, it will give you code on how to do a basic website. It'll give you other languages, pretty much all of them. If you work with Python or C++ or any of these sorts of things, then you can ask it for code. You can get it to edit the code. You can put your own code into it and say, please check this. What do you think? How can I rewrite it? And it will do all of that for you. Another clever feature of this, which we saw briefly in the PowerPoint presentation, is the image generation. So if I do, please create me an image of a house with a long driveway and a man standing in front of it waving. Now, this might be useful for logos on presentations, spice up your documents and make them look a bit more interesting. So obviously the image generation takes a second just while it's formulating what I've typed in, and it will come back with 4 images, which should be in line with what I've requested there. So there we go. We've got a man on a long driveway standing in front of his house waving. And you can customize those images further. You could say, make the image more modern and colorful. And it'll generate me 4 more images based on the prompt that I've just put in. And just while it's doing that, something important to remember about prompts in any of Copilot or any AI is they should really be thought of a bit differently to the way that we've all been used to interfacing with computers for the last 20, 30 years. When you type something into Google or Bing or any of these search engines, you have to be kind of short with it. You maybe write 2 or 3 words and then that'll give you the result. You can treat Copilot as if it's just another person. You can talk to it, you can say pleases and thank yous. If it's giving you the wrong information, you can tell it it's wrong, why you think it's wrong, and then it will correct itself. So it's very much a change of mindset in the way that we approach interfacing with a computer. Treat it more as a co-worker rather than just something that you would type into and expect an immediate result. If it doesn't give you what you want, tell it it hasn't given you what you want and get it to try again. Change what you're typing in, make your description longer, add in more detail, and it will give you a more accurate response. So that's the sort of chat interface there. I do have a couple of videos because we're in a Teams meeting. I can't show you the functionality of a Teams meeting, but I have a couple of videos just on Copilot in Teams meetings. So I will play those and hopefully the video and sound comes through okay.
Copilot in Teams makes every meeting a productive one. Here, you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize what's happened so far. Copilot summarizes who said what and what points were made, capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions are unresolved. It is just amazing to see this happen in real time during a meeting.
And I have a second one for Teams meetings as well.
Hi everyone, Kevin here.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business.
We're diving into how you can use...
Sorry, it's auto-playing the next video on the last one.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarized notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered, and it provides citations from the transcript so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver.
So as you can see from Copilot in Teams there, it's, as she said, it's a huge time saver. I use Copilot in my meetings all the time, and I'm in a lot of meetings. I use them for transcribing one-to-one notes with members of my team, and then I can take those one-to-one notes and put them into our HR software. When I'm in client meetings, doing strategy meetings or quarterly business reviews, I'll have Copilot running so that it's taking the meeting notes, it's generating all the action points at the end of the meeting, which I'll then share with the client to say, here's everything we discussed, here's the actions and who they're assigned to. You can also take those actions a step further and ask it to prioritize and put dates against them, and it will reference things like your calendar to look at when your next free slot is to perform those actions. So Copilot in Teams meetings is a huge time saver, and I use it pretty much daily. One final area of Copilot which is useful for people in a more advanced way. People may be familiar with Power Automate. If you're not, then you can go to your office. You can go to Power Automate here. Power Automate is designed for automating tasks, mundane tasks that maybe are time consuming that you don't want to have to do. And typically you would have to create these yourself. So you would create a flow, you would drag elements into the flow, and then you would test it. Copilot in Power Automate now allows you to create these automatically. So you could say something like, when a new email arrives, send a push notification to me and my manager if the email is important, which you'll see there. It will give you these suggested flows, but you're free to type anything you want in here, and it will attempt to generate the flow based on what you've written in there. So another example is maybe every day copy a file from a SharePoint library to another SharePoint library. Which is something which somebody could do every day. It could be a very mundane and boring thing that they have to do, and using Power Automate, that allows them to focus on other more interesting areas of their work rather than moving SharePoint files around. So you can see it's generated a sort of flow here. You can pick between a couple that it's recommending, create the flow, and it will create this sort of baseline, and you'll obviously need to populate some bits. You need to tell it, of course, which SharePoint site and which library name you want the file to be moved from and to, which is why it says invalid parameters against each of these, because that information needs to be populated in. But the flow can be built using Copilot, and you can build as many of these as you like and save a bunch of time. So hopefully that demonstration was interesting and gives you some ideas of the power of Copilot. I'm just going to hand back to Nick, who's got a couple more slides, and then we'll get into some Q&A.
Thank you, Doug. One of the things, I was at Microsoft a couple of weeks ago, and there's a new feature coming into Teams called Interpreter. So it's going to allow you to, it's in preview at the moment, but it's going to be generally available hopefully this year. But if you're speaking to someone who speaks a different language to yourself, it will interpret it pretty much in real time. So if that person was Spanish, they're speaking Spanish, it would actually give it you in English, and it would be the same for the other person that's got, as long as they've got Copilot for Teams. So yes, there's some new features coming as well, which are not here yet, but it's ever evolving and improving, which is amazing. So just a few more kind of bits to wrap up. So this is a pretty scary stat, and that is that 78% of AI users that have it in their kind of personal life are taking those tools into the work environment. So this is a major concern, because if your users are loading your confidential company information into these tools, then potentially that data is then being used to train the model, or it's being put into some public domain. So that's a really, really kind of big concern. So we want to make sure that we're not allowing users to do that. So that's why a tool like Copilot is good, because you're going to just push them towards a tool which you know is going to keep your data secure. And there's some things you can do in the background to turn off kind of usage of other tools as well. But that's a pretty big stat. Another study as well showed that 30% of people in today's kind of age have a desire to work for a company that's kind of embracing AI as a tool, and that would actually influence their choice of employer. So I think being at the forefront, using these tools, is going to attract sort of new talent and potentially, your future leaders, if you like, because people want to be using this technology. They know it can help them. They know it can benefit them. And that's quite clear, really. You consider the amount of people that are bringing their own tools to work from an AI perspective. If a company was to provide it for them, then they wouldn't need to do that. And it would also make them more efficient. So some of the early adopters, so this tool now has been around for, I think it's nearly 18 months. But some of the early adopters, there's some findings. So 70% of people said that it made them more productive, and then 68% of them said it improved their quality of work. So 77% said they wouldn't give up the tool now and work without it now they've got it. I can't believe that's only 77%, to be honest, but it should be 100%. But reports have shown that it can save you 30 minutes every single day, even more in some cases. So it just depends on your usage of the Microsoft tool set, how much it can save you. I know me personally, it saves me probably half an hour a day minimum, because I'm sometimes get double booked in Teams meetings. And there's a way you can follow meetings and get it to write notes for you. So I haven't got to go there and watch recordings of a meeting, which takes a bit of time. So the solution itself, you have an interest in it. So how do you kind of get ready for it? So I touched on this at the very, very start around asking questions about why you would, want to use an AI tool, or how you could use it. And it's not a one size fits all. So some customers may have all their data already labeled and all organized and secure. And others may be at the beginning of that process, and that might take a little bit of time, but potentially you could deploy Copilot within a few days with a few simple things and a few simple features turned on. One of those is called restricted SharePoint search. So this is going to do exactly as it sounds. It's going to restrict the SharePoint search of the tool, so you can aim it at specific SharePoint sites. So you're not compromising potentially sensitive SharePoint sites. That's a really, really quick and easy one. And while it's doing that, you can then fix the data situation that you've got, or improve upon it at the very least. Thing is with data is it's not a one and done situation. It's a kind of an ever evolving model. You have to continue to secure and protect your data. So there are some tools for that as well, which you can use. But there's kind of, I've got these 4 kind of headings here. So benchmarking your organizational profile. So this is what skills you've already got in house, other AI systems already in place, and what other use cases for AI. So who would benefit from it? And then you've got user readiness. So do you have the right licensing in the first place? How many users do you have? Will they need training? All those sorts of considerations. And then do you have the Microsoft tool set already in place? So if you've got Teams, Outlook, OneDrive, and SharePoint already, are you fully in the cloud? That's a consideration. So if you're on-prem, that it may not be the right solution right now for you. If you're using tools like Zoom or Slack, then do these tools plug into Copilot? So as I've already mentioned, if you've already got the Microsoft product 365 package, then you're probably an ideal candidate for it, as long as you're using it effectively. And the last one, and probably the most important one, is the data security and governance part. So it's pretty crucial to remember that it's going to recognize all the stuff that's already in place. So as long as you've got those permissions and policies already in place, it's going to deliver that information which is most relevant to users. So you're not going to have people getting the wrong data they shouldn't have, or potentially sensitive information. As I mentioned, it's pretty important to have that good content management practices in the first place, because you don't want, Fred from Sales Access and the CEO's personal HR file as an example. So we need to consider those kind of labels and access permissions, really. But the key point is it won't let users access information they don't already have access to. The thing now is that they have an AI tool to go and search for it and find it much quicker. Any more information you need on any of this sort of stuff, please reach out to the team, and I'm sure they'd be happy to help. And then there, the purchase and deployment options. So there are a few options. There's a couple here on the slide. So one that I encourage you all to do from now is the free search function, which is copilot.microsoft.com. So this is going to be potentially your search tool of the future. I use it now. I don't use Google at all at work. I use Copilot completely for web search, because I love the fact that it can retrieve information. I can have a conversation with it, and it pulls back relevant links to my prompt. It's a The only kind of caveat to this is you need to have a Microsoft 365 account already. And once you've got that Microsoft 365 account, commercial account, it will then give you enterprise data protection. So that's one of the key USPs of it. So your data is going to be protected. There is a paid for service, which is done either annual upfront or per user per month. Microsoft have currently got a promotion on. If you buy 10 or more licenses, they'll give you 15% off as well. So again, speak to the team at Grant McGregor and they can give you some more detail on that. The free version, which isn't strictly free because you have to have a Microsoft 365 license in the first place. It doesn't give any of the stuff that's been shown today really other than the web search, but it's still a good tool if you're not quite ready yet to deploy it at mass. It's also worth mentioning as well, there's a thing called Copilot Pro, which you may see online. Very confusing because it's called Pro, but this is actually a consumer product. So you can't plug your work data into it. So it's for consumers only, but it's called Pro. Very confusing. And then also you have a thing called Windows 11 Copilot. So if you've got a Windows 11 laptop or tablet, you may see a Copilot icon on the taskbar. So this is going to help you kind of get information and documents within your Windows environment as well as settings and that sort of stuff. So again, there's a lot of different versions of Copilot. The one we talked about today is Copilot for 365, which is in your Microsoft 365 apps. And that's it from me. So I'm going to hand over to Doug now to summarize before we look at any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Just on the various types of Copilot licensing there that Nick mentioned, we do actually have a blog on our website, which I'll put in a link after this, which just covers the differences between Copilot Free, Copilot Pro, Copilot for Windows 11, and Copilot for 365. They all have very similar names and different use cases, but the one, as Nick says, that we're talking about specifically today is Microsoft 365 Copilot. So just a quick summary then. So Copilot is obviously an AI-powered assistant which can interface with your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and more. It can help you with a range of tasks, writing emails, reports, creating presentations, charts, all these sorts of useful time-saving things. It's designed to make you more efficient and reduce the time that you spend on mundane tasks. And from what we've already seen, there's a huge amount of engagement and interest in Copilot. But before you start thinking about Copilot, think about how it can help you. It's worth bearing in mind that there is some preparation that might be needed, especially if your SharePoint permissions are not where they should be, or maybe you're not on Business Premium and you don't have the security controls that sit around that. Copilot, as we've mentioned, will inherit your existing security controls, compliance policies, privacy. So if you're confident that all that's in place, then using Copilot is a very straightforward thing to do. So in terms of getting started, you can reach out to us. My email address and our phone number is on the screen there. We can either do a Copilot readiness assessment, or if you've been chatting to us a bit about it already, we can just start providing licensing to you. You can leverage the getting started content and resources for adoption, and we'll provide the links for those and delve more into the security and privacy of it. There is also something called Copilot Lab, which helps you with prompting, so you can better formulate your prompts to get the desired information out of Copilot. In terms of skilling up for Copilot, if you're already using Copilot, there are a huge number of resources available directly from Microsoft, most of which are free. And there's some of those on the screen here. So you've got the Copilot Academy and the Microsoft Learn site, which is where all of their training material is. And that will give you lots of information on using Copilot better, getting it to do what you want, and getting your prompts formulated in a way that will be the most efficient. So we'll move on to any questions now. If there's any questions, then feel free to pop them into the Q&A box and we'll do our best to answer. Just give a couple of minutes for that. And I'll hand over to Eva once we've done questions, and we'll get the Amazon voucher winner announced. There's no questions coming through just yet, just in case people are typing. We've had some questions in the past, so I'll go over.
I've got a few in there, Doug. Actually, do you want me to read them out and let you? I'll let you respond.
Yeah, go on then. I'm not seeing them. Sorry.
Are you not?
Oh, yep, I see them now. They've all just come through at once. So someone said most of my meetings are face to face. Can Copilot listen in and be useful? Yeah, so through a combination of Copilot and Teams Premium, if you have Copilot running on a laptop or maybe on a large Teams meeting room device at the front of the room, it can be used to pick up the people that are in that meeting. It can recognize their voices, and it can still do the transcription and the meeting notes and all these sorts of things. So it does require the additional license of the Teams Premium, or if you have one of the Teams NUC devices at the front with a Teams Room Pro license on it, then yes, as long as you've invited the room into the meeting and it's listening to you, then you can use Copilot in that fashion as well. When creating a PowerPoint presentation or document, how do you get Copilot to present information into your own branded template or present data graphics in your brand colors? Can you set this up easily across an organization so it automatically does that as an initial set of instructions? So the branded template in PowerPoint, you would need to create that branded template. You could use Copilot to create the branded template, but you need to have that template in existence first, and then when you're putting something into Copilot, you would say, please create this presentation, and you would reference the document where your branded template is, and then you could distribute that branded template to other people. If you want any more specific steps on that, then just drop me an email or something, and I can maybe do a walkthrough with you. Can you share the Copilot summary of this meeting with us, which includes what steps and checks to take to integrate Copilot into the business? I am keen to read what I may have missed in my manual notes. Yeah, I'll share the Copilot summary of this as well.
I think even a couple of slides ago, Doug, you had that adoption link. That's a pretty good one for that.
Yep.
It may be more well-rounded than our meeting potentially.
So somebody said, very interesting presentation with some useful ideas about Copilot capabilities. Can Copilot use and generate content in our company's existing Microsoft templates, e.g.? Yeah, so the same as the answer above, yes, it can. You have to have the template in place first, and then reference the template when you're creating the Word or the PowerPoint or whatever it is. Following on from my previous query, does Copilot learn from my questions, and how is the quality of Copilot's responses evaluated? So yeah, Copilot kind of gets used to you. So when you first put a Copilot license onto someone, there's a 24-hour activation period, and after that time, when you log out of your computer and log back in, you should see the Copilot apps all appear in the various Microsoft products. But beyond that, in the background, which you won't see or notice really, is that Copilot's learning your behaviors, your way of typing, your commonly accessed documents and things like that. So the experience of using Copilot will only get better the longer the license is applied to that user. Now, some people have asked me, can we put a Copilot license on this person and then move it to another person the next day and move it to another person the next day? Technically, you can do that, but it will never learn that user's behavior. It will never get any better for that person. So leaving it in place, it learns what your behaviors are and works alongside you. The quality of Copilot's responses is continually evaluated based on user feedback. So you can give Microsoft feedback based on the responses, and Microsoft obviously conduct their own internal testing to evaluate the accuracy of the responses. The Microsoft statement says Microsoft is committed to improving the accuracy and reliability of Copilot's responses to provide the best possible user experience. So this is a continually ongoing thing. But
I know, as well, Doug, you can restrict the sites that it interacts with as well, can't you? And you can make it be more
Yeah.
I think there's a sliding scale, isn't there, on whether it's factual, accuracy, all that sort of stuff, or whether it can be a bit more creative with its responses.
Yeah, for sure. But of course it is AI, and it is pulling information from the internet if that's what you're allowing it to do. So you should always check if this is something that you're publishing, sending on to customers or something like that. Just proofread it and make sure it is actually accurate and hasn't misinterpreted something. Next person said, Copilot is an additional license cost, is that right? Or are there features that are included in 365? So yes, Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is the full product that we've demoed here, is an additional license cost on top of whatever license you have for 365 at the moment. As Nick mentioned, in the basic 365, there is the chat functionality. So if you were to go into Microsoft Edge, Bing, whatever they call it these days, and go to Copilot in there, you can chat to it. But all of the features that we've demoed today, where it integrates with Word and PowerPoint and stuff, that's not included in any base version of 365. It requires an additional license on top of that. How reliable are the answers in Copilot? When I ask questions, does it store that data, and if so, where? So I mentioned reliability a second ago, and just double checking these sorts of things. In terms of storing the data is stored inside your own 365 tenancy. So any business related data is kept within the confines of your 365. And it's an important distinction, which Nick mentioned briefly, between Copilot and other AI tools. Anything that you put into Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, is kept in your 365, and it doesn't use that information to teach the larger background AI model. It learns inside your tenancy, but that information then isn't taught to the AI to be accessible by other people. Whereas if you compare that to some other publicly available AI tools, when you're typing information into it, it's using that information to teach the AI, and then in effect, if someone wanted to, through prompt crafting, they could retrieve that information. So Copilot is a much more secure platform, respects the boundaries of your business data, stores your data wherever your 365 data is stored, which for us would be in the UK. And the last question we've got here is, if the idea of freeing up time for creativity, is it not a bit scary that the actual written created elements of presentations and blogs are not from the human employee? And if the speed of the automated version becomes the standard time expected to be given a task, won't that mean we're actually afforded less time for yeah, I mean, maybe Eva can comment because she's in the creative side of things, but I think for me, it speeds up my time when it comes to, doing things which otherwise I wouldn't have the ability to do, or wouldn't be able to do so well, or things I just don't want to do, don't have the capacity to do. So if I'm sat there trying to come up with a blog, or come up with a PowerPoint or something like that, that's something which could be done quicker. It could be out in front of everybody quicker, and I can move on to something which is actually something that I enjoy doing, or something which is more within my job role, whether that's a strategy meeting with a customer, or working on a new application that we're putting in place, spending my time trying to figure out how to do PowerPoint.
Exactly. I see it that way as well. So it may take me a while to kind of get over that kind of writer's block, if you like. This tool just gives you that 60, 70, 80% almost right product, but it's then down to the user and the individual with the skill to then kind of manage and develop that kind of thing that's provided for you. I think that's the key thing, so that the individual is still really, really important, and the way you prompt and then the way you edit what it's given you is important, because it isn't perfect, is it? We've seen that it can take it's very quick, but it isn't perfect, and that's why we are so important still, to make sure that it becomes a better version of what it's produced. Maybe one day it will be perfect, but don't think that's likely. I think we're still pretty pivotal to these things.
Yeah, just to get designed to, and I see your point there about, if things are quicker, then we might be, encouraged to
Expected
do more in less
work
time
in a day.
Yeah, I would view it more as it will allow me to focus on the things which I should be doing, or I want to do, or I enjoy doing, and not have to sit there and figure out how to do something I'm maybe not very good at, or don't know how to do, or don't have the capacity for. I can do that quickly, and I can get on with the thing that I actually should be doing. So that seems to be, is that all the questions? There's a few more. Someone said, do you think the amount of water and energy used for generative AI will mean there'll be a cap on Copilot usage for environmental reasons? It's actually an interesting question. AI is obviously quite demanding in terms of computing power, and there are whole data centers being set up just for AI generation, which has an impact on the environment and things like that. And Microsoft and other providers have recognized this, and that's where you might have heard the term of Copilot Plus PCs. We've mentioned to our customers a new type of Intel processor which has come out called Intel Ultra processors, and they actually have a neural processing chip built into them, which is designed to offload some of that AI generation to the local machine. So at the moment, when you're generating in AI, all that is having to go to a data center, and that's using a lot of power and water and all these sorts of things. But if it can do some of that AI processing locally, everybody has a laptop, and some of that processing capability is not being used, so we can save power and energy by offloading that to the local device, as opposed to doing everything in the big data centers. So there is work being done.
It will become more efficient, won't it, as well? It just will.
Yeah.
It's already more efficient than it was 2 years ago, so it'll get more efficient.
For sure.